In 2001, a comedy was made that had everything a Pepsi Smash watching, Blink-182 listening preteen could ask for. A movie with a plot mocking the establishment, hilarious comedy, and awesome music. Oh, and Rachael Leigh Cook. Yep, Josie and the Pussycats had it all, so why don't people talk about it anymore? 4 words: freak, gasoline, fight, accident. But we'll get to that. First, let's talk about this cult classic. Josie and the Pussycats is one of the most criminally unwatched movies of all time. Despite its name that might suggest it being a simple made-for-junior high girls adaptation of a known IP way past its expiry date, this comedy was way ahead of its time, and honestly, we just weren't ready for it.
I guess you guys aren't ready for that yet. But your kids are gonna love it.
Since you probably either haven't seen it or forgot about it, the movie follows a band comprised of 3 girls played by Tara Reid, future superstar Rosario Dawson, and She's All That alum Rachael Leigh Cook. The band struggles as they try to get their name out there to a town that's too busy adoring boy band du jour.
And all my gears from the clothing line, du jour, couture. Du jour means family.
That is, until du jour asked one too many questions of their producer Wyatt Frame, played by Alan Cummings.
We heard like a really strange background track, and we were wondering whether or not you knew what it was all about.
Gee, you know, I've no idea what that was.
Only to have Wyatt orchestrate one of the funniest airplane crashes since Airplane.
Hey, that guy in the parachute looks just like Wyatt. Du jour means seatbelts!
After the crash, Wyatt needs to find a new band, a band that won't ask too many questions as to not find out that the label is hiding subliminal messages that make their listeners purchase whatever they tell them.
This is what those kids think they're hearing on those headsets. And this is what they're really hearing.
Conform. Free will is overrated.
Josie and the Pussycats trip into stardom when crossing the street in front of Wyatt, and the new du jour is found, but this time it's the label that ends up crashing and burning once the girls find out about their twisted enforcement of capitalism.
You see, for years the government has been wisely coercing teenagers to buy products they normally wouldn't want just to get their money. Fact, kids don't have bills to pay. Fact, they don't pay taxes. But they do babysit and hold minimum wage jobs that earn them wads of cash as thick as, well, my body of work.
It's actually a pretty smart commentary on the powers behind making a band into a brand, then using that brand to manipulate audiences into doing whatever you want. You know, capitalism. Every single scene in this movie is bursting with logos and taglines from companies. It's like if the internet became a real place, it would be terrible. And maybe that's the apocalyptic future that we're all destined to live through. It's over the top, it's ridiculous, but what makes this movie work is a cast that truly understood what the directors were going for.
I can't be everywhere at once.
Oh, wouldn't that be cool though if you could? I could be here and in there. And I could be in the living room and in the family room and over here.
Parker Posey plays up every single moment she's on screen.
Enough spectacle. Let's go be girls.
She gives such an iconic performance that it seems like every single line that she gives is memorable. Kind of like someone else's role. But again, we'll get to that.
Right next to a huge steaming ball of foreshadowing.
She's not alone in making this a truly brilliant satire, though. Alan Cummings' Wyatt is doing his absolute best to keep up with Posey.
So to the young man with no future. Come on, Josie, there's a limo waiting. Good night, Adam 12. Trot on. Come on.
Actually, it's Alan M.
And it is one of the best comedic 1-2 punches of the 2000s. Everyone is funny in a movie like this, even the characters that in other comedies are usually annoying. In this one, they're actually entertaining.
Well, why don't you come along too? There's always room for one more.
How about us?
No.
And it didn't just have comedy going for it. The music in this movie is incredible. If you love that pop punk sound of bands like Blink-182, New Found Glory, or Good Charlotte, prepare to be amazed, because while I'm not going to play music so this video can actually stay up, I guarantee you'll find yourself humming these songs days after you watch the movie. Plus, there's a lot of references to what music culture was like in 2001, like Carson Daly making a TRL cameo, a march up the Billboard charts before people stopped caring about that, and my personal favorite, making fun of boy bands a lot.
Oh, well, we managed to land the plane just fine. Unfortunately, it was in the parking lot of a Metallica show. And I thank God every day I knew the words to Enter Sandman.
So good. Even the actors that they got to play du jour, hilarious.
It's my face.
Oh, hey, Travis, am I doing your face? Because God forbid I do your face, because it's such a good face. Hold on,
Du jour means friendship.
Thank you, Les.
So if it's a brilliant satire with some really great music, then why don't people remember it? Ben Stiller. That's why.
What is this?
A center for ants!
You see, Josie and the Pussycats wasn't the only satire that came out in 2001. Yep, this movie falls prey to what I call the volcano effect. On April 25th, 1997, Volcano premiered. It was a pretty good disaster movie with some memorable scenes, but people don't remember it as much as they remember another volcanic disaster film that came out just 2 months earlier called Dante's Peak, which starred 007 himself, Pierce Brosnan.
The name's Bond. James Bond.
It's an odd coincidence, but it happens fairly often where one movie is incredibly similar to another and still is made within the same time frame. And despite the quality of the movies, it always seems like pop culture will only allow room for one.
There can be only one.
One will be remembered and sometimes have financial success, and one will either bomb financially or not connect to audiences in the same way and be forgotten. There's lots of reasons why one doesn't work while the other succeeds. Sometimes it's as simple as one movie being better than another. Tombstone premiered Christmas Day 1993, and then Wyatt Earp came out 6 months later. But the quality of these films spoke for themselves and resulted in Tombstone being a financial success and being beloved by Western fans everywhere.
You tell them I'm coming! And hell's coming with me, you hear? Hell's coming with me!
Another reason why one similar movie's legacy endures while the other is mostly forgotten is the star power attached to the film. At the time, Pierce Brosnan was way more of a star than Tommy Lee Jones.
I don't care!
So while the quality of the movies is similar, Dante's Peak seems to be remembered more fondly than Volcano. And maybe the scene where the grandma melts her legs off pushing the boat through the boiling water helps too. Scarred me for life. The Prestige would also be an example of star power pushing one movie over the top of a similar movie. The Illusionist premiered in the summer of 2006, just 2 months before The Prestige. But The Illusionist only had one major star, Ed Norton, while The Prestige multiplied that by 3, plus Michael Caine, and of course superstar director Christopher Nolan. So while the reviews were similar, star power made The Prestige into a cultural touching stone, while The Illusionist faded into obscurity. But probably the biggest determining factor in which movie succeeds while the other stumbles is the marketing. Both Deep Impact, which premiered May 8, 1998, and Armageddon, which came out 2 months later, were billed as action thrillers about an Earth-destroying event. But Deep Impact turned out to be a bit of a snoozer for thrill-seeking audiences, while Armageddon delivered on the explosions, resulting in Armageddon making $60 million more domestic. A Bug's Life and Ants are similar. Both were marketed as kids' movies, and critics loved them both, while audiences told a different story. Ants just didn't connect with its intended audience of young kids, and the box office was proof. Which leads me back to Josie and the Pussycats. This movie is a smart satire with some really funny moments.
These kids will never know what hit them.
And neither will you.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Huh? What?
But the marketing would make you think it was a Barbie movie from the 90s. You know, before Barbie was also a smart satire. Universal marketed Josie and the Pussycats to the wrong people. Pre-teen girls.
Teen Girl Squad!
In an interview, writers and directors Deborah Kaplan and Harry Elfont were quoted as saying, "I don't know why we weren't thinking that based on the property, we kind of forgot that's who they were going to sell it to. But that's when that panic set in. They're not going to sell it to the people who are going to understand this movie, and the people they're selling it to aren't going to get it. And that's kind of what happened. This marketing failure led to Josie and the Pussycats failing at the box office and being vulnerable to another movie with a similar premise. So just a few months after Josie and the Pussycats exited theaters, Ben Stiller's classic Zoolander was released, and the similarities are uncanny. Both focus on a niche career filled with capitalist companies trying to take advantage of oblivious talent. And they do this through subliminal messages buried in music. All while former victims try to alert the current puppets into seeing there's more going on. Yeah, once you see it, you can't unsee it. They're kind of the same movie. Now, I honestly love both of these films and quote both of them often, but it's clear that Zoolander won this battle. Zoolander is adored, while Josie and the Pussycats is pushed into obscurity. Zoolander is looked at as a classic comedy, while Josie and the Pussycats was largely forgotten about until recent years and still hasn't gotten its proper due. So if you haven't seen Josie and the Pussycats, now is the time, and not just because this video is now over.